The Individualized Education Program, or the IEP, is the document that describes the specific educational services that a student will receive. The most important pieces of an IEP would include, first and foremost, the current level of educational and functional performance. That should be a snapshot of how your child is performing right now, captured in the IEP at the very beginning of when it's being written. The second most important part of the IEP would be writing goals and objectives. But those don't have to be university level goals and objectives. They really need to be priorities that you've identified with the team for your child's instruction and learning. At the end of a year, what kinds of changes would you hope to see in your child if they're given these kinds of priorities for instruction? And then that will lead you to what kinds of specialists need to be involved with your child, how often do they need to see your child, and in what environment should the instruction occur. Then the last most important part of the IEP is a description of the least restrictive environment. And that basically talks about how much time your child may be removed from the general education setting in order to get the specially designed instruction they may need to be able to make progress on their goals and objectives.
The IEP is a living document that, both parties, all members of the team should be part of, and, it can change, and, you can change it, modify it as needed kind of things, but especially when there's concerns about, the IEP.
I think it's really important for parents to remember their students, son and daughters, are general education students first. So think about what are your hopes and your dreams for your child, and often instead of going in maybe with 10 or 15 goals, really focus on 2 to 3 things that are really important to you. And remember, it's a relationship you're developing with the staff. So I tell parents, bring in cookies, bring in some snacks, make the environment really positive.
What I did was print off the wax. You can get them online at the OSPI website, and I put them in a 3-ring binder. And I took that binder to every IEP meeting that I had. And the binder was one of those that has the plastic around the outside, and I took an 8x10 picture of David and I put it inside that outside sheath on the notebook. And I would always stand my notebook up at the beginning of the meeting, and I would say, this meeting is not about what I want, and it's not about what any of you at the table want. It's what this child needs for a fair and appropriate education. So we always started the meetings with the focus being on the student and those needs that needed to be met through the IEP process.
The IEP team is very important. They write your child's IEP, and the IEP is what drives all the instruction and services that your child will receive. The law has certain people on an IEP team that are named. As a parent, you are an essential, integral, and named member of that team. And so it's important that you participate equally with everyone else in contributing to that document. Second would be an administrator for the school program. And third would be a special education teacher. Those 3 people have to be there, and then in addition to that would be other people who are in your child's evaluation team, other therapists who are going to be involved in your child's program, and a general education teacher. And a general education teacher is also now required to be part of the IEP team so that we can talk a lot about what kind of supports and services will it take for the child to return back or receive instruction, special instruction, in the general education setting. In fact, a general education teacher is so important to the child's team that you would have to excuse them in writing if they weren't able to come to your meeting. Another important member of your child's IEP team as they get into middle school and high school is your child. And for some parents that seems a little intimidating because there are all these adults in the room, and sometimes there's conflict around the discussion over what a child would need, or sometimes the things that we might say about your child seemingly would hurt their feelings. But the child's participation can be gauged in a way that's very specific to getting their input into their own learning plan, which is very important for students to be able to have.
Most of the time, when a parent is involved in any kind of meeting, you have an emotional involvement. You just can't help it. And sometimes because we are so emotionally involved with our own children and their unique needs, there are some things we just don't hear. And if you bring a friend as a support person to either be a note taker or to be there at the meeting, they sometimes hear things you don't. They sometimes write down things you don't. They can give you information about how they felt about how the meeting went. There's all kinds of really great reasons to have a support person there.
Don't worry about having to know everything. Parents are not meant to be lawyers or to be college educated in order to put together their child's IEP. The important thing is that you know that the IEP reflects your child's individual strengths and needs, so that when you read it, it reflects back to you the most important things about your child's learning and the priorities that you have for their learning. You can do this. You don't need to have any special skills. Just be the good parent that you are.